TSN Hockey insider Darren Dreger has provided us with a major update on the Robert Thomas trade front, so you won't want to miss what's coming up on this episode of Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis. Now, welcome in everybody to Answer the Call. It is no secret that Robert Thomas is the prized possession on the trade market this season, and a lot of teams are going to be pursuing the services of what is said to be a number one centerman, and he's played like that over the last few seasons, I should say, with the St. Louis Blues. If you are enjoying the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're just at the start of this journey here for Answer the Call, and we're already up to close to 50 subscribers in just a few days' time. It's pretty remarkable if you ask me, but if you are enjoying the content, hit that sub button. It helps me out a ton, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and you won't want to miss the content that we got coming up in the next few days leading up to the NHL trade deadline, and then after that, we're going to get into the baseball talk, basketball, football as well, so stay tuned for all of it on Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis. But yes, Darren Dreger, TSN's reputable hockey insider, has dropped a bombshell and has thrown a wrench into a lot of other fan bases' plans for their teams concerning Robert Thomas. Now, it's not the team that you would expect that is in on these sweepstakes and that is in as heavily as they are for Robert Thomas. But you guessed it. It's the Buffalo Sabres, and then Darren Dreger's tweet here highlights GMs are describing the NHL landscape as a buyer's market. Tons of players in play. Keep an eye on the Buffalo Sabres. Sources say between Buffalo and St. Louis, the talks have ramped up and they're heating up. So that's good news if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan. For a team that hasn't made the playoffs in almost a decade and a half, they're well positioned to make the playoffs for the first time here in a while and actually bolster their squad. Now, what that trade package may look like for Robert Thomas, this is where the water starts to get a little bit murky if you're a Sabres fan. It's a lot to give up, and I'm just warning you in advance. Close your eyes if you're an Owen Power, Consta Hellenius, and potentially a Jack Quinn fan as well. Now, the kicker here is that Thomas has a no-trade clause, so he can decide virtually where he goes or where he doesn't want to go, in a sense. So the proposed trade package for the Sabres for Robert Thomas includes Owen Power, Consta Hellenius, and potentially Jack Quinn, but Thomas would be willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to Buffalo, which is a little bit surprising to me because you're going from St. Louis to another small market team in Buffalo. But Buffalo has shown that when the team is good, whether it's in football, whether it's in hockey, the fans will show up and they will be loud and they will be boisterous as much as any other fan base around the NHL. So Buffalo fans are legit. They have been craving a winner for such a long time, and it seems like they finally got it this year. Like, if I were to rank the best teams in the Eastern Conference at the moment, I would have Tampa Bay at the top. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. But Buffalo just beat them the other day pretty handily, 6-2. Now, it's one regular season game in March, and you can't just put too much stock into that. But in terms of a measuring stick game, that was it right there for the Sabres. And they delivered. They answered the call. Pardon the pun there. But the Sabres have been playing unbelievable hockey since firing their GM, Kevin Adams. And then Jarmo Kekalainen comes in and does a fantastic job. I mean, hasn't really had to do anything. Inherited the roster from Adams, but put the pressure on the guys right away. Said, if you don't want to be here, we're going to ship you out. If you don't want to be a part of this process, you're not going to be a part of this process. And I feel like the buy-in with Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin has been incredible. And the Sabres have been the most electrifying story in the National Hockey League this year. There's no doubt about that. But it also feels like there are some significant holes on this roster. Now, if you get Robert Thomas, I think that puts you in a wonderful spot if you're Buffalo. And you're making a run at it in a wide-open Eastern Conference, and I have no issue with Buffalo doing that. They've been bad for so long, and the fans deserve this. The fans deserve a big splash at the deadline, and with the landscape looking like it is this year, there's no bigger splash than Robert Thomas. And if you want to take a look at his numbers, you want to do a deep dive there, you could see that he's basically a point per game player going on 5 seasons now, or close to that. So he's having a bit of a down year this year, has dealt with some injuries, but he was in that conversation for Team Canada. I mean, obviously his general manager, Doug Armstrong, was the one leading Team Canada into the Olympics. He was in that conversation. It didn't ultimately materialize, but Robert Thomas is one of the true elite centermen in the National Hockey League. Now, you can make a case that he's a bona fide number one, and I agree with that, but he would have to be on the lower end of the number one centers in the National Hockey League. And there's nothing wrong with that. That still makes him a top 15, maybe even a top 10 center in the league, but there is hefty competition at that position. And Tage Thompson, I think, is a wonderful player, great goal scorer. He's definitely in that conversation as well. But adding him to that rotation, Thomas that is, it just makes Buffalo so much more formidable and so much scarier come playoff time, that if they were to get Thomas, and if this were the package, then I might hesitate to put Tampa Bay in that top spot. I might not be so quick to pull the trigger on that. Now, there's still some work to do here for Buffalo. I feel like they also want to try to get a Tuck extension done in the offseason, which is key. He's a massive piece of that organization, and I think he wants to stay there. But good on Jarmo Kekalainen for getting the most out of his players, for putting the mandate out there the minute that he got hired, that there's no effing around here. We are going to go for this. We're going to play hard, and if you're not giving your all to this organization, we'll find someone to replace you who will give it their all. And I think that message has resonated in that locker room and amongst that leadership group, headlined by Rasmus Dahlin, who is having an exceptional season. Now, you might be looking at this trade package and wonder to yourself, if you're a Sabres fan, well, wow, that is a lot to give up for Robert Thomas, who, like I mentioned, is on the lower end of number one centerman in the National Hockey League. He's not in that Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon tier. But it's a lot to give up. But then you look at his contract, which is this, for another 5 seasons after this one, $8.1 million cap hit with the cap going up. That could be an absolute bargain for Buffalo. However, Konsta Helenius may end up being the best player of this deal. He's shown some pretty good potential in his limited time with the Sabres this year. And Owen Power, I think, is far from a finished product. So Helenius and Power, I think, are the two best under 23 players that Buffalo has at their disposal. And everything that we've heard, that's what it's going to take to acquire a player of the caliber of Robert Thomas. So it's an interesting conversation to be had. I think if there's any team out there that needs to take a big swing, it is Buffalo, because the clock is ticking. You've been bad for so long, and the fans desperately want a winning organization. They desperately want a winning team. And as I highlighted with this contract here for the next 5 seasons, this is not an all-in move just for this season. Sure, it makes you better in the short term, but you're also better off in the medium term as well, unless Konsta Helenius pans out and becomes better than Robert Thomas in the near future. I don't think that's going to happen as soon as that, but there's definitely a possibility there. However, Buffalo needs to go for this. And I think the Canadians are going to be in on Thomas. I think Detroit has to be in on Thomas as well. Same sort of thing over there. Steve Yzerman, a lot of urgency with the fact that he hasn't made the playoffs in his entire tenure there as the general manager for the Red Wings. So the Red Wings have to be aggressive. I think the Colorado Avalanche will be more aggressive in more the depth front. I don't see them adding a big piece, but they have faltered here as of late. So Buffalo, the ball's in your court. If you want to make this move, you have the assets to make it happen. And that would be pretty fun. I don't know how far that would propel them in the playoffs. I don't know if that makes them a Stanley Cup contender, but they're definitely playing like one right now. So interesting times in Buffalo, interesting times around the National Hockey League. And I feel like from now until Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, there will be a lot of moves that are made. And teams are going to be looking to add. They're going to be looking to get better. And Darren Dreger highlighted it here in his tweet. It's a buyer's market, and tons of players are in play. Now, whether that's defensemen, whether that's centerman down the middle, you take your pick. Your team will have the chance to get better because the buyers and the sellers are starting to separate themselves. And I think teams are recognizing, the teams that are on the outside looking in, they're recognizing that they can probably take advantage of this market right now and allow themselves to restock the cupboards a little bit. And St. Louis, in a sense, recognizes that opportunity, and they seem to want to take full advantage of that. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be sellers, maybe even the Florida Panthers, who continue to not make up ground in the Eastern Conference standings. So there will be some teams out there that are looking to offload some assets, and teams looking to buy. I think Montreal's in there. But Montreal will be smart about it. There's not real urgency when it comes to the Canadiens' deadline approach. However, for Buffalo, for Detroit, for Minnesota, there is a ton of urgency there because of the moves that they've already made and because of their previous history as well. Minnesota wants to get past the first round. They want to make some noise. They acquired Quinn Hughes, and they want to show him that they're serious and want to extend him. And then for Detroit and Buffalo, they haven't made the playoffs in so long that they feel like they got to strike while the iron is hot, and it's definitely hot right now. So if you want to stay up to date on all of the latest NHL news, all of the latest sports news, make sure to hit that subscribe button to answer the call with Peter Vryonis. Thank you all for making it this far in the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Let me know in the comment section down below, where do you think Robert Thomas ends up? And if it is Buffalo, and if you're a Sabres fan, are you okay with this package right here? I think I would be. I think Buffalo's got to take that big swing, and no better time than now. So let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see you all in the next video.